Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. Today is Monday, February 24th. Dave, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Districts are here. I'm excited. We got just all kinds of good action coming up here in the next week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and looking ahead at the forecast, most likely it's going to be warming up. So no more cold, no more snow.
Thank goodness. Let's get rid of this snow and get the golf clubs out. That's what I say.
And that was the biggest thing about this week that kind of just not really tanked expectations, but kind of put a damper on everything, was just, that few inches of snow that we got that caused every school in the area just to say, hey, we're not going to deal with this. And I think that's fine. Those country roads, things like that. And that becomes a difficult thing. And, having that many kids scramble around trying to get to school, that's just not something you want to play with.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that. And last thing, you want something bad to happen. So, I mean, I get it. It makes for a bad, last week before districts and teams scrambling to make up games and whatever they can during the weekend and everything. But at the same time, it's a good. I mean, it's teams that needed it could get some extra practice time if they can make it to the gym. And let's get rid of this weather. Let's get it out of here and let's have some basketball.
What do you want to talk about? Some of the games that actually did happen last week?
Absolutely.
Let's start with the Thursday game. I've got Campbell versus Gideon. Ended that game 70-35.
Yeah, Campbell needed a good game. They had some losses and they had some issues with the death and that was unfortunate. So they really needed something good to happen there. They did. They played well and again, you just kind of build off that, and it was a game they probably definitely should have won. They were the heavy favorites in that one, and it was just good to see them back out on the court playing well. Absolutely,
I think for Campbell at this point too. I mean, you're just kind of trying to get those last few games in for districts, and this was a good win for you. Having a 35-point win over a pretty decent Gideon team, I would say, for this year. That's just it's a good motivator, like you said, especially after the week they had. The past couple weeks, it's just. That's a tougher situation to come out of, but this is a good win for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to some Friday games, we've got Risco versus Zenith Hornersville. Ended that game 77-70.
A good close game for Risco. They got a little more than what I think they wanted, but at the same time, Zenith kind of plays these teams. They play a lot of these tougher teams close. They just never seem to get over the hump and get a win in them. But at the same time, this is a game that won't hurt Risco, being a competitive game. I think they need those moving forward because you're probably not going to get those in the district tournament, but you're going to need those when you get outside of that district. So these are good games for Risco to have, even though they maybe thought they probably could have played a little bit better than what they did. I think it's a good game for them and good game moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if this is just kind of like a padding for districts game, I think it's probably the best thing you could do is to play a team like Zenith, just because Zenith is kind of inserted themselves into that 4 slot when it comes to like Class 2 District 1. Not really sure on their exact bracket spot as far as like
4.
They're the 4. Yeah, it makes sense. And I think for a Class 1 team playing that's a good pseudo adversity game. It's just like, you're going to struggle a little bit, but like you said, that's what Zenith's MO has been this entire season. Every team they play them decently close. It's a 10-point margin typically, and for Risco to win by 7, hey, they're good going into districts for them for sure.
Yeah, Zenith's a tough team. They just, like I said, just can't get over that hump and win some of these games. Maybe they do it in districts. Maybe they pull a few shockers in districts, but they're not. Zenith is not a bad basketball team.
No, not at all. And then let's continue with Class 2 District 1. I've got South Pemiscot versus Clarkton, 75-65 in overtime.
Good for Clarkton. Clarkton's playing better as this year goes on. They're a team that, I think they've got Cooter in the first round of that district. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, I think they're a team that could pull an upset in that district tournament. But they're playing better as the year goes along. South Pemiscot, I'm just, I don't have a read on them. I thought they were going to be a lot better than what I think what they ended up being. They still were able to pull this game out. And if sometimes when teams miss a week of practice or something, they're a little bit, they're rusty coming back out, and that could have been what happened here. Who knows? But they were able to pull it out and get a win here. But I think Clarkton. I think for me, the thing with this is Clarkton is playing better, and playing the South Pemiscot team close like that. That's a good boost for them going into districts.
Absolutely, I think that's the biggest exclamation point you can put on this matchup is that hey, good for Clarkton.
Yeah.
And I like Coach McBroom, obviously, and to see them play South Pemiscot the way they're doing, that's a good game. Just going into districts for them, even though it's a loss, it's still just okay, so you're a little more beefed up than we kind of thought you were. And I'm just kind of curious how that's going to turn out next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and for South Pem, I mean, it's like you said, it's hard to get a read on them. Yeah. And once you go into districts, I mean, it's all fresh. It's all you're back to square one essentially for all these teams. But I need to see a little more. I need to see a little more than what I've seen all year, and that's gonna be a big test.
Yeah, I mean, would it shock me to see South Pem run through their district tournament and win it? No, but I just don't feel like that's going to happen. I just don't feel like this is a team that's played well all year long. It seems like they've been very inconsistent, and I don't know if they are what we thought they were whenever the season started.
Yeah, I would say for South Pem too, it's tough going into a season with that many expectations. I mean, I think they were extremely happy to get to the Final Four last year. Absolutely. You kind of have to hang your hat on that, but that's one of those things where it's just did you get there because of a lucky streak, or did you get there just out of pure skill? I mean, that's the proving ground. And obviously South Penn, we're kind of talking like they've already lost, but they haven't.
Yeah.
There's any chance that they could go right back to the Final Four. I mean, there's a puncher's chance for everybody at this point. And, I think they just have to pick it up at this point. That's the biggest thing.
They have the experience. They have, they've been there, done that. They've got the team to do it, obviously. We'll just see if they can put it all together here for this next week.
Next up, I've got Bloomfield versus Richland, 41-50.
Richland did just enough. I think we've said that, I don't know how many times this year. They did just enough to get this win, and they it's bad for Bloomfield. I don't think Bloomfield's going to reach that 500 mark as we
unfortunately
go. Yeah. They fell a little short here in the last few weeks, and some winnable games, I thought, but
one game on Saturday though.
Yeah, they did, but I think it's going to be they're going to come up a little short, but you got to admire the way Bloomfield plays. They kind of play a lot of teams tough. They played Richland tough here, and Richland, like I said, did just enough to win the game. Bloomfield just kind of drags you into their game, and Richland was happy to play that way and was able to come out in the end for the win.
I feel like it's we're beating a dead horse at this point, saying it every week, but man, Richland is the most consistently inconsistent team I've ever seen, and you beat Haytide pretty good. I mean, you won against Bloomfield. I mean, hang your hat on that. But at the same time, it's I expected more. So I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore.
I mean, Richland has won, a bunch of games this year, but have they ever looked just really impressive in any of their wins? And I don't know that they have. I mean, they've had some impressive moments and they've had some good wins, but they've just never I've never watched them play and just been like, wow, that's a really, really good basketball team. I just still feel like something's not clicking with them.
Yeah.
They are a good basketball team.
Yeah, you see flashes of it every game.
Because you see flashes of it, but it's just not a consistent. They're consistently inconsistent in games, not only with in the season, but just in games. And man, if they ever put it together, they can make a deep run. I mean, a really deep run in this Class 1. And, I want to see them playing their best here this next week. Which
I think that was another thing. I mean, when we talked about expectations with South Pem, I think Risco had the same thing. Richland. Richland played Risco last year, and that was the biggest moment for that. So I think for Richland, man, I mean, that's just you're coming in with that expectation too of just well, these two teams are going to meet up again. They're going to be about the same level. And I'm just not seeing that from Richland right now.
I don't know if they're going to meet up again. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just for Class 1 District 2, I mean, we'll talk about a couple more scores, but yeah. I feel like that's anyone's district at this point.
Yeah, we'll discuss that here in a little bit. That's gonna be a fun one.
Next game on my listing, I've got Jackson versus Sykeston. Covered that game on A-Corp Sports. Finished that one 58-81.
Yeah, I mean, Sykeston, when they play well, they play really well. Mm-hmm. And when you see Coach Hollifield on the sideline yelling, screaming, really getting after his team and constantly after them, I mean, they're usually going to play well. They're usually going to come in with a lot of energy, and that's what happened. And these are two teams that really don't like each other a lot. A lot of chirping back and forth between them. And obviously Jackson's played Sykeston close. Cole Deck, just a heck of a player. I mean, just for him.
You want to talk about like a matchup between two players. You mentioned it last week, PJ Farmer and Cole Deck being the two best players in Southeast Missouri, and I think they both showed that. Yeah. They were going 3 for 3 a little bit. So
yeah, that was a fun matchup to watch. But Sykeston shot over 60%. If they're shooting like that, playing defense the way they're playing, they're tough to beat, and they're hands down the best team in Southeast Missouri when they're playing like that. And Farmer seemed to get to the rim anytime he wanted. Cole Deck, if you just gave him an ounce of space from the outside, he was hitting shots for Jackson. It was a fun game. It's just I thought the Sykeston just had more. It seemed like they played with a little more energy, and I just felt like Sykeston was just clearly the better team.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those nights where Sykeston felt like they were that complete team that on kind of all sides of the ball. You had PJ Farmer doing what PJ Farmer does. I feel like Trace played some really good defense, especially in that first half, and then Wiggins in the second half. I mean, 21 points. Yeah. How do you deal with that? I think the biggest thing for Jackson. I thought Jackson was going to try and, slow the pace down, kind of do what they do, but Jackson started to speed them up, and you could kind of see that like frustration. Cole Deck seemed pretty frustrated. I mean, 29 points in the night, nothing to sneeze at, but he seemed pretty frustrated the entire night too.
Yeah, I think I thought he thought his team would probably play better, but again, you got to slow that tempo down. And Sykeston got him into their game, and they do that with defense. Mm-hmm. And when their defense puts that pressure on you like they do, it's going to force some turnovers. Those turnovers turn into easy points, and once that happens, Sykeston gets rolling. And especially playing in the field house, when they get rolling like that, it's a tough train to stop.
Yeah, I mean, when a fast break's coming and you can hear the crowd just knows that it's coming, the cheers start. I mean, that's I don't even know what that feels like for players. Like I got to try and stop this now.
Yeah, it's impossible. I mean, when Sykeston gets rolling like that and they really get after it and they start feeding off the energy of the crowd and then feeding off the Coach Hollifield's over there yelling and screaming, just encouraging them more, and then it's an environment that other teams just are not used to, especially when you're playing at that field house as loud as it can get on the floor. And it's just an environment unto itself. And man, Sykeston just does so well whenever they get rolling and playing like that. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. And it was on senior nights, the atmosphere was going to be rocking. Mm-hmm. And two, I don't have any stat to disprove this at all, but this is the first time a SEMO conference team has gone undefeated 2 years in a row.
I believe so. I can't think of another time that it's happened. I mean, it may have happened back in the 80s, with Charleston and some of those teams. But in the recent memory, it's the first time.
Yeah. So take that achievement because that rules.
Yeah. I mean, and SEMO conference is tough, and especially last year was really tough, and then for them to do it twice, and so it's good for Sykes. And I mean, they've had it rolling, and we'll see what happens next year.
Oh yeah, that's going to be kind of the biggest question mark because you're losing a lot of seniors that are pretty core parts of your team.
Yep.
All right, moving on. I've got St. Vincent versus Bell City, 55-60.
Yeah, Bell City with a good win here over a St. Vincent team. Bell City playing just quietly playing well here, not drawing much attention. And, we know that they played Richland tough. We know that, they played Delta tough. All these teams in Class 1, I mean, they're just kind of just hanging around. So good for them, and a good win for them. And we'll see how this translates. But, St. Vincent, they're typically a very good team. And so a good win for Bell City.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bell City is another team in that, that Class 1 District 2 that's just like, all right, they're still there. You can't ignore them. Like I said, that's the biggest question mark for me is that Class 1 District 2. I feel like that's anyone's district to win, and Bell City, obviously a contender. They beat Richland before. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're the ones who kind of put Richland on the track they're on right now, but that I've said that for the past few weeks. But hey, we'll see. Yeah. And then Leopold versus Advance, 53-52 in overtime.
Yeah, this was kind of a surprise. Advance is playing better. Mm-hmm. Advance is a team that's playing better. And Leopold, I don't know how to gauge Leopold. Sometimes they look really good, and other times they're very much like Richland. Very, very, consistently inconsistent. And but that was a good win, and they were able to pull it out in the end. But Advance, on the other hand, they're playing better. I mean, it's one of those teams. They remind me a lot of Bell City last year, kind of playing better at the end of the year. You kind of use that and catapult into the next year, and maybe you start playing. Maybe your season takes off a little bit next year, and so that's kind of what I'm kind of seeing from this Advance team. But hey, if you're gonna be peaking, peak now.
Yeah.
This is the time to do it, and I think Advance is one of those teams.
Yeah, you mentioned it whenever Starter County was going on too, that Advance as being a 7 seed is probably a really good 7 seed. Yeah. So, I think this isn't really a surprising score as much to me. I'm not really sold on Leopold at this point. Not to say that they're a bad team, but at the same time, it's that consistent inconsistency. And, you got the win, so take that for what it is.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got Twin Rivers versus Scott City, 44-78.
Scott City, just speaking of trains, just rolling. I mean, right now Scott City is just rolling, and they're playing well. And we'll see. They're going to have that matchup hopefully with Woodland in that championship, that district tournament. And but right now Scott City's doing what they need to do, just taking care of business, and just kind of no nonsense. We're going out. We're just going to beat the crap out of you and move on.
Yeah, and I think for most teams, I mean, they love to be in that situation. For Scott City, do you think a little beefier schedule would have helped them around this time too?
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen them play a tougher game down the stretch. I think we'll see how that's going to benefit or harm because in that district there's going to be there's two different ways of doing it, and we'll see which way wins out. But I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt. I mean, it never hurts to play good teams, especially at the end, just to get yourself up. Amped up for a good game like that. I mean, it never hurts anything.
Yeah, and speaking of that, let's talk about our next game, Puxco versus Potosi. Ended that game 57-63.
Yeah, it just wasn't a good weekend for Puxco, but they did not play bad in this game or the game on Saturday. I mean, look, Potosi is a good team. Unless your name's Farmington, they're beating you. I mean, they've played 4 games this year. They're 19-4, 20-4, whatever they are, and only 4 losses are to Farmington. All of them. It's like, first off, stop playing in so many tournaments with Farmington where you play them all the time. But Potosi is a good team, man. I mean, that Whitley kid can play, and he could, and Puxco just struggled to stop him. I mean, I think he had 31, 32 points. I mean, he was able to get to the rim whenever he needed to, and I mean, he's just a very good player. I thought it was a very good game back and forth. Puxco led a majority of the game. It's just down the stretch, Potosi made the plays, and it's just one of those things where, I mean, it's a tough game, and I don't think any less of Puxco for losing this game. I mean, it's a good game, and I think is going to help them in districts. I mean, you need to play these tough games because they had not really played a lot of tough games leading up to this. I mean, it's mostly games that they're winning by 30, 40 points, and so having a game like this is good because it gets you built into that close game mindset of what you need to do to win these close games.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. I think as far as a loss goes, like this is the kind of loss you want to take right now. If you're going to have to take a loss, it's against a good team, and it's still technically in regular season. So I mean, it's one of those learning experiences, and the biggest knock I feel like Puxco's had all year is just like your strength of schedule isn't there, and obviously this is a game that they added to buff up that schedule. And so I think, this is a learning experience, and, take it now instead of, next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you definitely want to lose now, not next week or this week coming up. I mean, but at the same time, look, Potosi is a good team. I mean, you don't take anything away from them. They're a really good team, but both teams kind of came out a little sluggish. I mean, you could tell that both teams had been off for a little bit.
Yeah,
a lot of just shots that were just more off than what you would normally used to see, but they were both going through it. I mean, again, it was just a really good basketball game, and Potosi was just able to pull it out in the end.
And then let's just tack on Saturday's game, Woodland versus Puxco, 77-67.
Yeah, again, just not a good weekend for Puxco. I mean, it was just, not only they had that, but they had the fire there too. It's just a bad weekend for Puxco. But Woodland, look, Puxco has a target on their back, and we know this. I mean, Puxco after they beat Woodland in the county tournament, there's some fans had said some stuff, and so people have noticed that, and so Woodland came in fired up for this game. You can tell they were fired up. They wanted to win this game, and they did. And both teams played well. I just thought Woodland just played a little bit better. I mean, it's just and it happens. It's not a it's probably after the Stoddard County tournament. Puxco probably was not as good as they look like. That's probably their best that they can play. I mean, they played amazing that game, and Woodland didn't play well. I mean, so we thought coming in, we talked about it in our last podcast that this game was going to be a little bit closer, and obviously it was. It's a 40-point difference. I mean, but Woodland, they kind of got their revenge. They played well, they played tough, and made the plays when they needed to, and that's what you do. And like I said, Puxco's got that target on their back, and so they're going to get the team's best game. And I thought Woodland came in and played very well. I thought Puxco played well, and again at the end, I thought Woodland just made the plays they needed to make to win the game. Yeah,
I think that's the biggest takeaway too, is that this was the game we thought the end of Stoddard County was going to be. Woodland was probably coming in this game, like you said, it's a revenge game for them. But at the same time, Puxco did not play this game bad. They played their aggressive defense like they typically do, and held Woodland pretty good. I think it was just little mistakes towards the end. That's kind of like every time Puxco would like hit a big three, kind of like set that momentum. It was like, oh, it's now it's a 4-point game. Then like some ticky-tacky thing would happen, and then it kind of just sets it all back. And, Woodland just kept up with that. Puxco's defense is so aggressive, and it works out really well typically. When you got three guys, just really defending as hard as they can against one guy, and he makes a great throw in the backcourt, and you just leave all those holes there. I think Woodland just took advantage of that.
Yeah, and Woodland did exactly what they needed to do to win, and they played well. They passed the ball very well. And look, that's kind of what Woodland does. They just didn't have it against Puxco the first time, and that happens sometimes. And these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. These are, we talk about it all the time. You never know what you're going to get from them game to game. And this time, Woodland brought their A game, and Woodland played well and was able to pull out the win and get the they won the Stoddard County regular season, and so congratulations to them, and it was well deserved. I mean, I thought they played really well, and again, like you said, Puxco didn't play bad. It was just that Woodland played better.
Yeah, and I think for Woodland, this is a good motivator, especially going into next week. For Puxco, once again, I think this is a great learning experience game because. This is a close game. Woodland plays close games, especially against they already played that close game against Charleston that Charleston won. So, for Puxco at this point, it kind of, I would say this motivates you to just okay, don't hang your head on it. Just we got to keep focused.
Yeah. If you're Puxco, it's we got to get better. I mean, we got a couple games. We got to get better here because, this is what we need to do to get better. And I'm sure Coach Fernetti is hey, look, we didn't close both games. I didn't think they closed very well. I didn't think that they made the plays again. Both of them, I didn't think they made the plays at the end that they needed to make. And that's something you can work on. These are great situations for them to build off of. And they've been able to do that. They were able to do that against Dexter in the Christmas tournament. They were able to do that against Dexter at the end of this or in the regular season. They were able to do that in some other games as well. Make those plays at the end, so they know how to do it. It's just you just got to but you kind of when you blow out all these teams for a month straight, it's you kind of lose that edge. Well, now you can kind of get that edge back. So I think again, I don't think any less of Puxco for losing these two games. I mean, look, you're very seldom do you ever go through a basketball season losing just one game or two games. I mean, you're usually going to take a few losses along the way, and Puxco it's not the greatest way to go into districts, but you've got a game or two here that I think that you're going to be okay with before you get to that championship game where I think it's going to be a tight, hard fought game.
Yeah, I think this game puts a chip on your shoulder going into districts, especially, and like you said, this is one of the first times that Puxco's faced just a solid week of adversity, and I think they needed it. I mean, going back to that Thayer game, that was a tough game. That's always going to be a tough game for Puxco, going forward if they keep playing them. Taking that loss when you took it so early in the season, I don't know if it set the tone, but obviously winning all those games as blowouts, that set a tone for you. And to kind of, I don't want to say be knocked a little bit, but just, going up against a wall that's just okay, it's not a perfect season. There's still time to learn. I think that's probably That's going to be the biggest motivator.
Yeah, and for me, it's like this is one of the few games that actually they've lost. This is actually the only game so far this year that they've lost that actually meant a little something. You lose to Thayer, non-conference game, doesn't mean anything. You lose to Potosi, non-conference game, doesn't really mean anything. This game, you lost your conference title. You didn't get your regular season conference title outright. So it actually meant a little something. Now I know it's not a tournament championship or anything like that, but this game meant a little something. So yeah, you kind of a little chink in the armor here, but at the same time, there's plenty of time. You get into practice, get a couple days of practice here, and kind of get refocused and head into this district tournament because everything that you've wanted is still right there in front of you.
Sure.
So it's just so while it meant a little something the loss did, it's not the end of your season.
Absolutely.
So you just dial in and move forward here in this district tournament.
No, I mean, to me at this point, I feel like this is a better loss than a win. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, right. It probably helps you more losing this game. You don't like saying that, but I mean, if you win this game, I'm like, you can't use that as a motivating factor if you're a coach.
Right. And then let's talk about some upcoming games. Obviously, we're going to talk about districts in its own segment, but I've just got a couple, I guess you'd still call them regular season at this point. Monday, speaking about Woodland, Risco and Woodland.
Yeah, this game was just added. You just told me right before we started this, and that's a great game. I mean, that'll be a fun game to watch, and it kind of mixed in here with all these districts, but I guess they both have byes on Monday, so go ahead and get a game in. Stay healthy, nobody get hurt. That's number one. Yeah. But at the same time, the two good teams going at it, and it'll be kind of fun to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I don't know what final score is going to be. I would favor Woodland in this. I like Risco a lot. I think the biggest issue is going to be bench depth at this point. Woodland knows how to alternate players. Risco, I mean, you're a little more limited in your options, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest contributing factors is just like how tired are you going to be probably in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, I like Woodland. I've liked Woodland all year, and I think they're a good team. I think both teams match up very well, size wise, just the way they play. I think it's just going to be an exciting game, and so we'll just see how it plays out. I think it's a coin flip. I think both these teams play very well, and so it'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and you want to talk about just kind of similar situations. I feel like Risco is in a very similar situation to Puxico, too, of just like, strength of schedule is the biggest knock against them. So, for them both to take on a mutual opponent now.
Yeah, Woodland here at the end. I mean, hey, and Woodland's like, we'll take it. Woodland's not afraid to play teams. They're not afraid to play these tough games, and I love that about them. And so we'll see how that helps them coming into their district tournament.
Yeah, I think it's only going to benefit them to play these tougher games that, you're not guaranteed to win. And yeah, like you said, I think it's just going to strengthen you up going into districts.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Tuesday, we've got Cape Central versus Kennett.
Yeah, Kennett, I don't know what's going on at Kennett. They just lost to Portersville in double overtime yesterday. Not a good game from Kennett. Just kind of just sluggish the entire game. Just never really got into it. Xavier Bogan went off for Portersville. Had like half their points. So Cape Central, they're not a bad team even without Edwards. I just don't think they're a district contender without Edwards. But they're still not a bad team, and they're going to get out and guard Kennett, and they're going to make it tough on Kennett to score. I like Cape Central in this game. Yeah,
I would say it's pretty much favored to Cape Central. I mean, Kennett, I keep calling them frisky and fun, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how frisky or fun they are the last couple of weeks.
No, this is going to be a tougher game. I feel like, but I would favor Cape Central also.
Yeah, we put Kennett in our rankings, and then all of a sudden they're just like, we're done. We're not. They haven't played well after that.
That's what it is.
Wow.
And then Dexter versus Notre Dame.
This game could be a preview of the district championship game. They haven't seeded that yet. I think they're seeding that.
I would say Wednesday.
I think it may be after this game, so it could be for the top seed. So, you obviously, if you're Dexter, you want to win this game, but you haven't played in a week. I mean, this is a tough game. Notre Dame played a really tough game with Borgia, a really good game, went to overtime. Dohan hit a big three with about 9-10 seconds left to send it to overtime, and then Borgia, kid came off the bench. His name's Raymond Downey. Came off the bench and hit a three to win it at the buzzer for Borgia. Just a great basketball game. So, Notre Dame is. I think Notre Dame's primed for this district tournament. I think they're playing about as well as they can play right now, even though they lost to to Borgia. That's a really good team. Dexter's not played in a week or more. Hopefully you get Turnbow back, but Dexter was playing well up to that. But I hate teams having a week or more layoff and then have to go and play a meaningful game. And so I like Notre Dame in this one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the biggest factors is like, do you have Turnbow back? I mean, it's nice to have that, pressure at the basket at least. And, he's very athletic. That's what his bread and butter is. If Dexter gets into a guarding situation, I favor Notre Dame at that point too. I mean, sometimes Dexter, they can have that pop-off three moment that really just kind of sends it. But I think once Notre Dame kind of gets you kind of locked down, I feel like that's going to be – they're not going to let you do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like Notre Dame in this one, especially with Dexter with this time off. And so we'll see. Like I said, Notre Dame's playing well. I mean, this is a very good Borgia team. Obviously a Borgia team that beat Sykeston earlier in the year. So this is a good Borgia team. And for Notre Dame to take them to the limit like that's a good sign for them. And Notre Dame. Speaking of tough schedules, Notre Dame's played a tough schedule this year. They played over in that Nixa tournament. They played tough teams up and down. They're going to be tested and ready for this district tournament. I think they're clearly the favorites, and I think they're the favorites in this game.
Yeah, and like you said, I think this is going to determine a 1 and 2 seed. But right now, I'm favoring Notre Dame for this game. And then moving on, we've got Seckman versus Jackson.
Jackson, I'm sure is going to come out a little angry.
Sure.
And they've played well all year. Just a couple of losses this year, and to all very good teams. I think they take care of Seckman, kind of take out some anger that they had against Sykeston. But I think they take care of this game.
Yeah, I think for Jackson, I mean, Koldeck is going to do what Koldeck does. I'd like to see more production from the rest of the team, but that's my only knock against them right now. I don't really know how Seckman looks compared to Jackson, but I'm going to take Jackson.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some districts?
Let's do that.
Speaking about it,
let's do it.
So let's start with Class 1, District 1. What do you think about this bracket?
I think Risco should roll. I mean, it's obviously
that's the expectation.
It's the Tri-County tournament minus Holcomb, and I think Risco should roll. There's a couple of games that I'm looking at. Maybe a semifinal game, Southland Gideon. I think that could be. Southland won that game down at Southland in the tournament. Now Gideon, it's going to be at Gideon. So I kind of think Gideon maybe wins that game and goes into the finals against Risco. This Clarkton Cooter game could be an upset game. Could be a really good game.
Sure.
Clarkton's playing well. So you've got to look at that. But I think my pick is Risco to win this tournament, and I think they're I just think they're primed to make a run here.
Yeah, I would hazard to say anything's going to happen otherwise. It's like you said, it's just about the matchups in between where we're going to end up at. Obviously, if Clarkton plays with Risco, I feel like a lot more people are going to have eyes on that just to see what happens. I don't think anything's going to happen.
No.
I feel like there's a little bit of drama interlaced in that, but that's just how it is. Otherwise, I mean, like you said, Gideon, Southland, if they end up playing again, I mean, that's going to be a big game, I would say, just because we know how those two have played each other.
Yeah, and Southland wants to get back in that championship game. I know Risco was missing a couple guys, but Southland thinks that they can maybe they can pull an upset there. But you got to get through Gideon first, and I just like Gideon playing at home, playing that game. I just like Gideon in that one. Kind of have the motivation of losing a couple of weeks ago to the same team. I like Gideon in that game, and so we'll see. But like I said, I think Risco's the comes out of this district.
All right, let's move on to Class 1, District 2. This one is big question mark for me.
Yeah, early in the year, I thought, well, Richland's going to roll through this district. Richland and Risco just going to roll through their districts, and I thought Richland was just heads and tails above everybody else. Now I'm like, this looks like a tough game. I think the first round games are go chalk. I don't see any upsets in that first round. But then if that's the case, you have Richland Leopold in the semifinal and Delta and Bell City. My gosh, that's two good games right there.
Oh, yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I think obviously Richland, Leopold's going to be extremely motivated in that game. I think after the first game, it was a 51-13, if I'm not mistaken. They held the ball, that situation, whatever that was. Leopold wasn't healthy. The coaches back and forth at each other. This game's going to have a lot of intrigue. Leopold's going to show up to play. So, Richland's going to have to play well, but they play well at home. I mean, for the most part, they play well at home. So I like Richland, and then Delta Bell City. Man, I don't know. That's a toss up. Here's my hot take. if Bell City beats Delta, I think Bell City wins this district.
Ooh.
I don't think Bell City's going to win that game, though. I think Delta's going to win the game, beat Bell City, and then I think Richland beats Delta. So my pick is Richland. I'm not highly confident on that, but I do say that if Bell City does somehow beat Delta, I think Bell City can beat Richland.
I would say, you know, my favorite team for this bracket to just kind of win it out, I'm picking Delta.
Delta?
I think everything I've seen from Delta is, you know, they're an unexpected hit. Not to say that they haven't been all year, but when I see them play, you know, I didn't have eyes on them, and they just kind of laid low. I wasn't paying attention to them. But man, I mean, they're a tough team. And I think that win against Bernie, I feel like it really kind of sealed it for me. Was just like when people aren't expecting you, and you just kind of take the dagger to them early. I feel like that's what sets them ahead. And you know, Richland's, like we've said, consistently inconsistent. I feel like Delta could probably snag that win against them again if they end up meeting up, but that's just where I'm at.
It certainly would not shock me. I mean, this is one of those districts where I think any of the top 4 teams can win it. Yeah. And if you tell me that Leopold comes out of this district, I'm not shocked. But I still think it's Richland. I think Richland beats Delta in that championship game. But again, I'm going to throw that caveat, a little asterisk over there. If Bell City does beat Delta, I think Bell City can pull this upset.
This would be what if Bell City and Richland do, and that would be the 4th time.
4th time. Man. And, you know, Bell City won the first one, Richland won the next 2. And then, you know, so you'd have the 3rd one, and all 3 have been close. So, you know, they match up pretty well. Bell City's not afraid of Richland. Mm-hmm. Bell City will be motivated. You know, both, obviously, if you're playing a district championship, both teams are going to be motivated. Yeah. You should not come without any energy in those games. But man, I don't know. I just think if Bell City plays that game, I don't know. My gut's telling me Bell City.
Okay, but just like,
but Richland's my pick.
Richland's my pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Richland Delta in the championship.
I think that's fair. All right, let's move to Class 2 District 1. What do you think?
Another one that the top 3, 4, 5 seeds even, not 5 seeds. I think this top 3 seeds can come out of this one, and I really think it's going to be Campbell, Hayti in the finals. But you got Neelyville, Zenith. That's a game that could be an upset there in the first round. It could be a really good game. I think Hayti and South Penn kind of cruise into the semifinals. That Hayti South Penn game, good. I mean, that's going to be just a heck of a game. Yeah. I think Haty's got a little more offensively in this one. And so I like Hayti in that. And, you know, Campbell, of course, Campbell has played well all year. They kind of limping in a little bit. They're not, you know, the last, 3 weeks or so, they haven't been playing as well as they did earlier. So for me, it's kind of a coin flip. I'm taking Hayti to win it. But, man, that's a tough call because I think Campbell's really good too. I just think I don't know. My gut's telling me Hayti. My gut gets me in trouble a lot, but I'm gonna go Hayti.
Oh, man, I'm also flipping that coin in my head of just like because I'm flipping between Campbell, Hayti. Yeah. Very hesitantly, I'm gonna take Hayti as well. I just feel like they're a very athletic team, super aggressive. That's that Class 2 District 1 style. That's that boot heel style we've been seeing all year. Yep. And that's so difficult. Campbell, like I like Campbell a lot. The adversity they faced in the past couple of weeks. I mean, it's been good. It's been good to face those kind of losses. I just man,
that's like me.
So tough.
I couldn't pull
so
the. I want to pull the trigger on Campbell. I really do. I really like their team. I think they're really good. But I just something in me is telling me can't. Hayti over Campbell, and we're probably both going to be wrong. It's probably going to be South Penn rolling through this thing.
Yeah. The only sticking point for Hayti with me is it's that Richland game, and I know that it was at Richland. Richland plays well at home. It's one of those times where they really popped off and they played one of their best games. But, man, Hayti looks good.
I thought about that, too, and I'm like, but that was a Saturday game, not a huge crowd. You're going to have a huge crowd for this game as they play Campbell. It's going to be just packed. You're going to have a lot of eyes on you. You're going to have a little more energy than what I think you had against that Richland team. Yeah. I just think so, and I think the energy is going to really help Hayti. But, man, I want to watch that game. That's going to be a fun game.
What do you think would be a likely upset if there is one?
I think South Pim, South Pim either beating Hayti or Campbell or both. I think those would be the upsets that could happen. South Pimmiscott, again, they're a good team. They've got the experience of going to the Final Four. They're a team that has that ability to win this tournament. Now, do I see it? No, but I think if there's some upsets coming out of here, that meaningful upsets, other than maybe Neelyville beating Zenith, meaningful upsets, I think it's South Pim either beating Hayti and or Campbell.
Well, I was just going to say, what about? Yeah, let's take ourselves back a couple weeks when Neelyville was our darling. If Neelyville upset Zenith and then took Campbell to some kind of overtime game.
That wouldn't shock me. No, I don't think Neelyville's got enough to win this tournament, though. I don't think they've got enough. I mean, could they take Campbell to the wire? Absolutely. I mean, they could. If they were to upset Campbell, I mean, that would not shock me at all. No, I mean, Neelyville's shown the ability to play well and play well in big games. So, but I think they've got their work cut out for them against Zenith, and if they get past them, then I think Campbell's just probably going to be a little too much. But if it were to happen, no, it wouldn't shock me.
No, I think it would interest me a lot. Yeah. But upset wise, I mean, South Pimmiscott could upset Hayti. South Pimmiscott could upset Campbell if that's how the bracket goes. That's one of the man. I just don't know.
In one of these tournaments, there's going to be a huge upset in one of these tournaments that we're talking about today.
So?
I think there's a possibility of a 1 losing to a 4 in one of these tournaments. I don't know which one it's going to be. There's a possibility though, because I don't think all these 1 seeds go unscathed into the championship games. I just don't see that happening. Again, I don't know which one it is, but I think one of these teams in class 1, 2, and 3 that we're talking about today, I think one of these 1 seeds is not going to be in that championship game on Friday night.
Sure. I mean, anything's possible. All right, I'm taking Hayti.
All right.
Class 2, District 3.
I think we've talked about this one a little bit already.
Oh yeah.
We got Puxco, who on paper, I mean, they look like they're the team. Obviously, they're the team to beat in this district. They are the, obviously they're the favorites, and if they play well, they should win this tournament. For me, though, I've been on record of saying that I like Charleston just because. First off, Charleston's won 14 straight district titles. I mean, a lot of these guys, last time Charleston didn't win a district title, they were in diapers.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been a while, and so I'm going to stand on that hill until they lose one. Eventually, they are going to lose one though, and this is one of those years that you're looking at it and being like, hey, this could be the year because Puxco's got that type team. Charleston. In the last 15 years, like I said, they've not lost a district title in the last 15 years. Only once have they not been the top seed in their district. That was 2022. They won a state title. So I don't know if this is a state title team. This is not one of Charleston's best teams that they've had. But they played a really tough schedule. 6 of their 10 losses have been by 6 points or fewer. I think that they're playing really well right now, and they're just young enough not to understand the situation.
Sure.
When you have these sophomores and freshmen coming in, and they won't be overcome by the moment, I don't believe. And Puxco has all the pressure in this. I mean, all the pressure. Everybody's going to give them their best shot. We already talked about that, and Charleston's been listening to everybody talk the last couple months, and they've just been sitting back and just waiting, and everybody's kind of slipped on them because of their record. So we'll see. I like both teams. I would love to see that championship. But with that being said, you're going to ask me about the possibility of an upset, and I'm going to tell you Bernie against Charleston is a possibility of an upset right there.
I also consider that if there was any chance of an upset, I said that's what it would be. At the same time, I don't think Bernie can overlook Oran either.
No, I think you're right. You can't overlook anybody, especially an Oran team that has played well at times this year. Bernie's going to have to make shots.
Yeah.
And that goes for Charleston and Puxco as well. You've got to make shots. You can't go into one of these games and just be ice cold and expect to come out. I mean, I think I hate to say this to our friend Josh here, but I think Chaffee knocks off Bloomfield in that first round, and I think Chaffee gives Pucks go a little bit of a game for a while. I don't think I don't think it's a game that it's close at the end, but I think they give them a game for a while. And it's one of those games, if Pucks go's not hitting early, then that's a problem. But I think Pucks go, pulls away at the end. But I think Chaffee's better than what people give them credit for. So, but I think Bernie and Charleston, I think that's going to be a game that people are kind of overlooking, just expecting Charleston to be in this championship game against Puxico.
Yeah, and I think, for Bernie, at the same time, when they pop off really well. It just depends on, is your team on all cylinders? What's your three-point shooting like? What's your post play like? How's your defense? And it's all those factors that, like, well, if you're going to play Charleston, that's all got to be going as strong as it can.
Yeah, the thing with Charleston is they're so quick. Offensively and defensively, they're so quick. They're going to get to the rim, and they're really going to get out on your shooters. It's going to be really tough to get those open threes and stuff. That's why I think it's a tough matchup for Bernie. But at the same time, if Bernie somehow gets hot, I mean, it could be lights out for Charleston, and Charleston doesn't even make it to this championship game.
Yeah, that's totally possible. But let's kind of finalize it. Who you got winning this tournament?
My pick, until somebody knocks or breaks this streak from Charleston, I'm going to take Charleston. Now, I really like this Puxico team. I've given them the business a little bit this year, some of their fans, but I really do like this Puxico team. And if there's ever a team that's going to end this streak, it's going to be Puxico. But I'm not going to pick this streak to end until it actually ends. I'm not going to make that bold prediction. So I'm going to stick with Charleston and hope that they play in Puxico in a championship game and just hope it's a great game.
Sure. I'm going to take Puxico, and they'll call you a hater.
Well, that's fine. They call me worse than that already. So,
yeah, I'm going to take Puxico. I think this is just, if there was a year to do it, this would be the year. The adversity of facing Charleston in this, which I don't think anybody expected was going to happen. If you told anybody 3 years ago that this was going to be what the Class 2 District 3 tournament was going to look like, they probably wouldn't believe you. We still have so many people saying, it's like, when did Charleston move to Class 2? When did that happen? It's like, it happened this year.
Yeah.
So, if these two teams end up playing each other, I think it will be a close game. I think Puxico's guard play might just push them forward, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'm saying if you're going to get Charleston, you better get them this year.
Yeah,
because they're loaded with young talent, and they're going to be tough in the next few years. I feel bad for Bernie, who's also got a lot of young talent. That's going to be if this district stays the same, that could be brutal in the future. But we're not talking about the future. We're talking about this year, and we'll just see. This is one of those ones. Let's see if Charleston can pull it out. But they're my pick.
All right, Charleston for Dave, Puxico for me. Class 3, District 1.
Oof. Okay.
A lot of dissension in this one over seedings.
Yeah, I don't. It's six of one, half dozen the other for me as far as seedings go. As far as the 1-2, Crowsville, East Prairie, I think it doesn't matter. I think they're in the championship game. I think they're clearly the two best teams in this. And if they're not, this is one of those that if they're not in the championship game, I'll be surprised. Of all the ones that we have, the one I would be most surprised on if they're not in the championship, it'd be this one. Because I think they're clearly the two best teams, out of the six. You look at the 4-5 New Madrid, Kelly. I like Kelly in this game. I don't know if New Madrid, look, New Madrid's had 7-8 games this year postponed. They've not made any of them up except for one, Malden. I'm like, at some point you got to, there's people out there begging to play games and stuff. And I'm like, at some point I just question, do they even want to play? I like Kelly in that game. And then Twin Rivers, Portageville. Portageville's playing better, but I still like Twin Rivers in that one. But it doesn't matter. I like Crowsville, East Prairie in the championship game.
Yeah, I would agree. And how that game's going to go, I mean, I think Crothersville's favored. I think that's just the situation it's at. East Prairie, Noah Johnson, Connor Markham. That's your two guys. That's your two, big players. What I need to see if you're going to win this game, I need to see production from the rest of the team. They got to be on full cylinder. That's just how it's got to be. Crothersville, they played a tough schedule. They're very competitive, very aggressive, very athletic. And I think when East Prairie goes up against that, I saw it against St. Mary's. I mean, you might want to say that, East Prairie was gassed during that game. They very well could be. But at the same time, I think that's the adversity you're going to be facing against Crothersville, and that's tough to overcome.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think this is a coin flip for me. The Crowsville East Prairie is a coin flip. What it comes down to, East Prairie has never won a district title. And is the moment too big for them? We've talked about that all year. Is the moment too big for them? and I'm going to go Crothersville. I just think Crothersville is just more dialed in for this. I think they played a tougher schedule. I think that I don't know. It's just honestly, I don't know. It's just a coin flip, and I'm going to take Crothersville.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm on the fence. I'll say that it is a coin flip game. I'm gonna take East Prairie just for dissension's sake. That's me. But like I said, every point that I made, like that's where I'm at. Is like, and you're right. Big games like you lost to Scott City twice. That's the biggest holdover for me. Is like you're so close. You're so close to being a great team.
And Dexter in the Christmas tournament.
Sticks
with me. And I'm just like, in a big game that you need to win, are you going to be there to? And they've not, in those big games this year, they've not won those games. And so that's why I'm taking Crothersville.
It's funny because, one of my coworkers, East Prairie guy, he thinks his motivating theory is like, does the game happen before 7 p.m.? Because if it does, then I think East Prairie's the best team. But they just tend to get sleepy after 7 p.m. And I don't know if there's any truth to that.
They have those early bedtimes. Is that?
I don't know.
I've not heard that theory, but
I think East Prairie, if they're motivated, I've seen what they can do.
Oh, they can play well. They have the ability to win this. And I want to see them clicking on all cylinders when they play this game. I would love to see East Prairie get their first district title. I'd love to see that. I like their team. I like their coaching staff. I've covered them for years. I would love to see them have some success. I don't know. Until it happens, I just can't. It's kind of like the Charleston thing. Until it happens, I just can't see it.
Yeah. No, I think you're right to be wary. I think for East Prairie right now too. You think about this: three-peating on 20-win regular seasons. Like,
yeah.
I mean, on paper, that's really impressive too. So it's one of those things where it's just like, man, if I can say all that about East Prairie, how good is Crothersville?
Yeah, and I mean, I think Crothersville is really good.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to say East Prairie. That's my pick.
All right, there we go.
All right, Class 3 District 2.
Yeah, this one, I mean, another one that I think we have the clear 1-2 teams, Woodland, Scott City. Another one that had some dissension about the seeds, I believe. Some people that weren't happy with that. But at the same time, I think Woodland beat Scott City head-to-head.
Yep.
So Woodland should get that top seed, and that doesn't surprise me. And I think Woodland, it's be a great final. I can't wait to see it. Scott City will be the one with a little bit of motivation in this one, coming in with having lost to them earlier this year. I think that they've got some toughness. We talk about the schedule, and this is, Woodland's kind of played a tougher schedule here at the end than Scott City, and how is that going to play out? We'll find out. I don't know anything about Arcadia Valley. I'm just don't know. I'm assuming that Scott City takes care of them, but who knows? Maybe they come in and pull an upset.
Sure.
But I think Woodland has no problem with Greenville or Saxony. Whoever, I would assume Greenville comes out of that one. But so Woodland's never won a district title either. And is the moment too big for them? That's the question again. And but man, I don't know on this one. This one's another one that just be a coin flip.
Yeah, I think this one, aside from Puxico Charleston, if that ends up happening, I would say this would be the most, critical-eyed game that I'd be watching of just like who's going to come out on top. Because, if you'd asked me a couple weeks ago, I'd say Scott City 100%. I think Woodland was on that kind of that downhill recovery phase. And you know what? I think for the most part, they've made that transition back to where they were. Do I think they're the number one team like in the area? Probably not. But, they beat what we do consider the number one team in the area. So that's going to be, this is a contentious game. I don't know. I'm going to take Scott City to win this, though.
I have Scott City written down, and I'm going to go Woodland just to be argumentative.
No, and that's fine.
Because it's a coin flip for me. I don't know. I was on Woodland most of the year. After they lost to Puxico, I'm like, well, maybe they're not as good as I thought. They kind of had some other games I looked at, and I'm just like, they're just not what I thought they were. Then they picked up back here at the end of the year. They're playing better again, and they look more like what I thought they were going to be. So I'll go Woodland. but for nothing, just to be just different, just so we can have a different pick. But it's a coin flip for me, and it's there's not enough eyes for me. There's not enough place. I need to like some Star Trek ability to be at all these games on Friday night, because they're all going to be happening at the same time. And they're going to be so much fun, and this is going to be just another one if it happens. That and I would be shocked if it didn't happen. But it's just another one that would be a lot of fun to watch, and a lot of who knows, just a coin flip game. Hopefully, great games all the way around.
Yeah, I think the biggest sticking point for me when it comes to just picking Scott City over this is just Woodland and Scott City have played before, and kind of the general thought process was Scott City should not have lost that game. Mm-hmm. It was just one of those nights that Scott City just wasn't there. And, for the rest of the season, I think Scott City, their losses have been close and their wins have been decisive. And that's where I'm at with them. They look like the most complete team. And, Woodland also, when they're popping off, they're popping off. And when they look complete, they look complete. So it is a coin flip, but at the same time, I'm seeing more consistency out of Scott City.
Yeah, I've liked Scott City all year. Had them number one in my poll for a while, and look, they're a very good basketball team. What I like about them is they're tough. They've got some toughness about them. What I do worry about is sharpness coming into this tournament. They've not played one of those close games in a few weeks. Yeah. I mean, it's been East Prairie. I mean, that last time was East Prairie, and that's been end of January. So it's been about a month that they played a really close game. So
and Woodland's been playing close games. Like that's been.
And
that's
iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that iron sharpens iron. That's one reason I like Charleston in Class 2 District 3 is just they're tested constantly. You're constantly tested, and the more you're tested, I think the better you are. And so that's why I'm not that's why I'll go Woodland here, because I think that they have been tested, and they've had some of these tougher games coming down the stretch, and I think that could help them.
Man. So all throughout this, we've only had one team we both agreed would win.
Is that Risco?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's two. Risco, and we both said Hayti.
Yep, there we go. There we go.
How many times can we say coin flip in one episode?
I don't know, but that just shows what good tournaments these are going to be. I mean,
absolutely.
I really think these are going to be some really nice tournaments, and man, lose, you go home.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I think the biggest thing too is like we talked about parity all year, and I think this is kind of where it all comes to a head is just like, the 1 and 2 for each of these brackets. For the most part, it just feels like it's just complete parity.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of fun games to watch. And, I hope we have just every one of these games are just awesome, the championship games, because those are games that your fan base will remember forever. Win or lose, your fan base is going to remember those games forever and ever. And those, you don't want those blowouts, but man, those close district championship games, those are the ones that you talk about 20, 25 years later.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, anything we're missing?
I don't think so. We've covered a lot today, but just best of luck to all the teams, and may the best teams win.
Absolutely. All right. This has been the SEMO Sports Zone. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.